What's up, arseholes? Welcome back to the channel. And I know I haven't posted it in a little bit, mainly because I've been busy with training for a fight that never actually happened, and I've been busy with work and I just couldn't be fucked. But I'm back, and I'm going to be doing a video where I predict the upcoming main events for upcoming UFC pay-per-views. So basically, I'm going to be predicting the main events for UFC 314. That is, if they don't announce it by the time that this video gets posted. UFC 315, 316, and then UFC 317, which will be International Fight Week. I couldn't be bothered going past that because I have no idea where they're going to go. I have no idea if they're going to go to London, or if they're going to go to fucking Boston, or if they're going to go to the Sphere again, if they're going to go to Brazil, or if they're going to come back to Perth. Like, I have no idea where they're going to go. So, yeah. Here's what I think every upcoming main event's going to be from now to International Fight Week. So, let's get into it. Starting off with UFC 314, which we know is going to be in Miami. There's been a couple of main events going around, but ultimately, I think we're going to get Volkanovski versus Lopez for the interim featherweight title. There's been a lot of talk about Ilya versus Volk 2 happening, and initially I thought that's what we we're going to get, but from the sounds of things, it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. I think they've got something else planned for Ilya, which we will get to later, but either way, I do believe Volk's going to be fighting, because honestly, I don't know who else they're going to put as the main event. They could do Shavkat Bilal, but I think they're going to save him for a later date. I don't know if they're going to do a Pantoja main event again. Apparently, the fight between him and Kai Kara-France isn't even official, so I don't know what they're doing there. But yeah, ultimately, I think we're going to get Volkanovski versus Lopez for an interim belt. Probably not a vacant title. Like, I don't think the UFC are just going to strip Ilya like that, especially a potential star like Ilya, who has double champ status. But yeah, I think there'll be an interim belt on the line. And the winner of this fight will fight Ilia Topuria if he comes back down to featherweight, or if he, I don't know, stays at featherweight. Well, either way, they'll either fight Ilia Topuria, or if Ilia decides to vacate the belt, then, I don't know, I guess they'll be promoted to undisputed. As far as I think who wins this, even though a lot of people are saying that Volk should school Lopez, and I can see that happening, I don't know. I don't like the fact that he's been out of the cage for so long. I mean, I like that he's taken time to recover, but he's damn near 37 years old now, so I don't like that Volk's been out for over a year. I get that he needed time off, but I feel like once you're after the age of 35 at featherweight, I feel like he can't afford to take off any more than 9 months. Like, I just have a feeling Volk might come back and look completely cooked, or maybe not completely cooked, but just not look as good as he once was, like even in the last fight with Ilya. So yeah, ultimately I do think Diego Lopez will catch him if this fight happens. It's another thing, I also don't know how Volk's chin's going to be after getting knocked out twice. But either way, I do think this is the main event we're going to get for UFC 314. Moving on. Next, we have UFC 315, which, oh my god, it's going to be in Canada. Either way, I actually think we're actually going to get a decent main event. And the main event I think we're going to be is my glorious king Bilal Muhammad versus Shavkat Rakhmonov. Because honestly, I don't see what else they're going to put as the main event. Like, I don't think they're going to put Valentina Shevchenko, God forbid they do. Or even fucking, what was it? Juliana Pena versus Kayla Harrison. Yeah, I feel these Canadian fans get shit cards enough as it is. If they have to get another women's title fight, god damn. But yeah, I don't think the Canadian fans are going to be that unlucky to get another women's main event. So I do think we're going to get Bilal versus Shavkat as the main event. And also, process of elimination. We have, well, we've had since, like, November. We've had the heavyweights at November. And trust me, they're not coming back for this card. We had Pantoja, the flyweight belt, was on the line for December. January, we had the lightweights and the bantamweights up on January. February, we just had the middleweights and the strawweights. In March, we got Pereira, so we got the light heavyweights. In April, we're most likely going to get Volk versus somebody for a belt, for an interim belt, so that's going to be the featherweights up, and even Pantoja's fighting again, so the flyweights up as well. So by process of elimination, that kind of just leaves us with Bilal and Shavkat, the only belt that hasn't been defended in a while. Outside of the women's belts, but no one cares about that. I do think they might put a women's title fight in the co-main event, like we might get Juliana Pena versus Kayla Harrison, or Valentina Shevchenko versus Manon Fiera as the co-main event, and fucking whatever. But please, don't make it the main event. Give us Bilal versus Shavkat. Because honestly, I don't see when else they're going to do this. For June, I have an idea of what they might do, and I don't think that Bilal versus Shavkat really fits into that idea. As far as who wins, I'm picking my boy Chad Lal Muhammad by devastating, brutal, most horrific highlight reel decision, 50-40s across all scorecards, and he's going to defend the welterweight belt, and all these haters are going to cry. God bless my glorious King Bilal. But anyway, moving on to the next card. Now, this card hasn't even been officially announced yet, but for UFC 316, I think more than likely it's going to be Dustin Poirier's retirement fight in Louisiana. And since the UFC haven't announced anything yet, that's kind of why I have a theory that that's what it's going to be. I haven't given him an opponent because I'm not actually sure who it's going to be. I feel like it might be Max Holloway, but at the same time, I think the UFC want to make the Charles Oliveira versus Max Holloway fight for the BMF, so that's why I didn't really say Max Holloway. And also, I don't really want to see that. Like, does anyone really want to see a trilogy with him and Holloway when he's up 2-0? Especially when I think Holloway might beat him. Like, do you really want to ruin that for Poirier? Like, if this is Poirier's retirement fight, let's get him a fight he can actually win. Like Gaethje if he beats Hooker, maybe. Or I don't know, maybe Hooker if he beats Gaethje, or one of those two. They could do Fiziev, but I don't think Fiziev's a big enough name for them, even though I think that would be a sick fight. They're not going to do Paddy. I mean, they might do... I could see them doing Chandler in a rematch. I could see that. I could even see them doing Charles Oliveira. Or maybe, hot take, they could do Conor if he actually decides to come back, but highly unlikely. So yeah, that's why I'd put Poirier in without an opponent, because I'm not entirely sure who they're going to give him. But who knows, this might not even main event. Another option they could do for this card, for UFC 316, depending on where it is, Merab versus Sean O'Malley 2. Or maybe Merab versus Piotr Jan 2, but knowing the UFC, they're going to fucking do Merab versus O'Malley 2, even though O'Malley does not deserve a title shot. He's been sitting out since his loss to Merab. And honestly, he hasn't showed us anything since then, obviously, that shows us he can beat Merab. Like, honestly, if anything, just give us the Piotr Jan rematch, or even do Pantoja. Like, that's what I've been saying from the beginning. Well, actually, I don't think I said it on the channel, but whatever. The point is, I think that Pantoja should honestly be next for Merab, because they both cleared out their divisions. They're both unbeatable champions. Pantoja has enough title defenses to justify him moving up. And honestly, I think it would be a more intriguing matchup than him versus O'Malley, because I don't think O'Malley's going to beat him. And on top of that, O'Malley doesn't really have enough star power to justify this. The UFC thinks he does, but he really doesn't. Maybe if O'Malley didn't have the charisma of a rock and look like the human embodiment of a neon-colored tampon, he'd be a bigger star, but he does, so yeah, he's not. I mean, his fights are entertaining, but honestly, the shot's undeserved. I understand why they'd give someone like Adesanya an undeserved title shot against Duplessis, because at least he actually sells. But O'Malley doesn't fucking sell, no matter how much they try and gaslight us. But either way, I do think the UFC will force this onto us again and make it a main event and cram it down all our throats. Even though this card would probably flop with this as the main event. Maybe the UFC might swallow their pride on this one and make it the co-main event. But honestly, I can see this being the main event of a June pay-per-view. Maybe with Poirier in the co-main event, maybe not. Maybe they'll do separate cards, but I don't know. But either way, if they don't do Poirier's retirement fight for June, like the beginning of June, I think that's what this is going to be. I think it's going to be Merab versus O'Malley. Moving on. Last but not least, we have UFC 317, International Fight Week. And I think there's two options for what they're going to do for the main event of this card. And I'm going to start by saying they're not going to do John Jones versus Tom Aspinall, because John Jones is being a little ducking bitch and won't fight Tom Aspinall, so we're not going to get that. Even if we do get it, it's going to be for MSG, most likely, because John Jones is going to drag this out for as long as possible. Anyhow, I think there's two options they can do for this card, and I'm going to start with the first option, and that is Islam Makhachev versus Ilia Topuria for the lightweight belt. And honestly, Dana, Hunter, make this fucking fight before we oil your asses up. Like, seriously. This is the biggest fight they could do right now, outside of anything that involves McGregor. Maybe Pereira Jones could be bigger, but let's be real, we're not getting that fight. So yeah, make this fucking fight. Pound for pound #1 status on the line. Honestly, the two best fighters and most well-rounded fighters in the sport going at it. And a hot take, I think Ilia can take Islam. I think there's a chance that maybe he could knock him out. Like, I would understand that Islam would be the betting favorite, but honestly, I would lean with Ilia winning this fight. Like, I'm not going to go out on a shield and say that Ilia can win, kind of like how Lucas Tracy went out on a shield saying Benoit would beat Poirier. Like, I'm not that confident, but I just have a hunch that Ilia would catch Islam and put him out and ruin his chances of going up to welterweight. If Islam wins, I think after this he moves up to welterweight and then Ilia goes back down and fights the winner of Volk versus Lopez. But either way, they need to make this fight, and they need to send them on a world tour, have them do face-to-face interviews, do all sorts of marketing campaigns like the whole Godzilla versus Kong type shit, where it's like who will win. Make this fight UFC and make it as big as possible. Like, honestly, just fucking tell the whole world about. Like, this is probably the biggest fight they can do right now, and they need to make it. Let's be real, the walkouts for this fight would be fucking hype. The build-up, the press conference, the weigh-ins, the face-off, the fight itself, pretty much everything about this fight will be hype. And there'll be TikTok edits about this fight for generations to come. Especially if Ilya wins, bro. But yeah, if the UFC decide to fumble the bag and don't make this fight, they've got a next best option. The next best option, aka the makeup gift they can do for us if they can't get Islam versus Ilya, is Dricus versus Hamzat. And no bedtime, we're not getting both of these on the same card. The UFC are not doing that. They've never been that generous by giving us two great title fights on one card. I can't remember the last time they did that. But yeah, I think if they can't do Islam versus Ilya for International Fight Week, they're going to do Hamzat versus Dricus. I think we're getting one or the other for International Fight Week. That's what I think is going to be the case. But either way, if they do make this fight, I don't know who I'd pick, to be honest. 1 minute I'm leaning with Dricus, and I'm going, nah, Hamzat's just going to spam. Not spam, he's going to dive across the cage or whatever, like he always does, shoot the double, get him down and submit him like he does to everyone else. But I don't know. I could see Dricus just surviving it and goofballing his way to victory, which I honestly hope that would happen, because Hamzat being champ would ruin the division, because he'd be inactive, he'd finish everyone in like 2 minutes, and the division would move slowly, and like it'd just be a nightmare. So for that case, I want Dricus to win. Plus, I like Dricus as champ. He's more entertaining to watch than Hamzat. I just think the build-up to Hamzat's fights would be a bit more hype, but I personally just prefer Dricus as champion. I understand it'd be a bit of a risk having this as a main event because we know Hamzat's history with pullouts and not being able to make weight. But in the case of that, just have Nasruddin and Mavov weigh in as the backup. To be honest, I think he deserves a title shot more than Hamzat, because honestly, wins over Adesanya, Cannonier, Brendan Allen, and Roman Dolidze should mean more than a win over Whitaker. Just Whitaker. Like, that's his only ranked win at middleweight. So if we're being honest, I think Mavov deserves more, especially since he just beat Adesanya, who's beaten Whitaker. But we won't get into that right now. But either way, if we can't get Islam versus Ilya, I do think we're going to get Hamzat versus Dricus as the main event, which concludes our video for today. Well, that's it for today, guys. I apologize for the long wait between videos, but I've been busy, you know. I have a life. But yeah, please like, subscribe, hashtag All Hail the Marlin Army, you name it, whatever. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Please drop some comments about what videos you want to see next, because I'm running out of ideas. And I'm not doing predictions on shitty Apex cards, like the one on the weekend. I mean, it wasn't that bad of a card. It was actually a decent card, but I couldn't be fucked making a prediction video about it. I'm not making a prediction video about Cejudo versus Song Yadong. And I'm probably not going to make a prediction about... Actually, no, I'm going to make a prediction about Manel Cap versus whoever he's fighting. I forgot his name, because it's Manel Cap. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video.